In this video, we are going to teach you how to structure short-form performance videos that will crush on social media in 2025. Are your video ads too complex? Are they failing to capture attention quickly? Or maybe your videos are already killing it, but you want to optimize them for testing and experimentation. Well, stick around for a really simple cheat sheet on how to concept video creative that scales. And definitely wait until the end because we're going to be revealing a oftentimes forgotten component that connects your message to action, the user's action, and therefore more conversions. I'm Matt. We are talking to the marketing industry's top talent from the world-class growth agency Jump 450. Today, we have got Dave Armstrong, Director of Paid Media at Jump. Dave, let's jump right in. Dave, why don't you just start us off by telling us what we're going to be talking about? What are we learning today?
Yeah, today we will dive honestly straight in, like we're probably right after this, we'll dive straight into the essential components of direct response video ads to modularly and structurally test, learn, and scale. And all of this is in an effort to drive performance or drive conversion. A little bit more on that so everybody kind of knows what they're about to see. We'll go through the four main components of highly performing video ads, and that'll start with what I call creating an anomaly in the newsfeed, or stopping the scroll, as everybody knows it's called. So that's number one. Number two is drawing on an emotion. Number three is going to be solving a pain point for the specific user, providing the product or service as the solution is another way to think of that one. Mm-hmm. And then number four is often forgotten about, but connecting or driving to your landing page, or what is your call to action. So trying to drive action.
Dave, why don't we start by addressing two of the biggest trending questions that we found surrounding running creative on Meta this year. The first one is about video content optimization. What I found was, what strategies are effective for creating impactful short form videos under 60 seconds for platforms like Instagram Reels and Facebook Watch? Can you talk about how we're going to be sort of like answering that question today?
Yeah, the main strategy that we use in order to create impactful short form videos are to build our videos with a modular approach. So we'll keep different components of each video and be able to understand the performance on each of those components, what each of those components actually do and why they're important. And that'll allow us to understand, hey, what video links are beneficial, what placements are beneficial, and then go from there based on what the data tells us.
Absolutely. And just to add on there, we're also going to be talking through some really like must-have essential components for performance ads, right? We see this a lot with the client work that we do. Some people think they're making performance ads and they're forgetting about some really essential things that actually do drive conversion. So we're going to really be highlighting those. I also did want to address that we had sort of differing ideas about the 60-second cap on these videos, and also the placements of Instagram Reels and Facebook Watch, right? You want to address that?
Yeah, I think it's essential for everybody to understand that different lengths of videos, different placements are going to attract different types of users. So I don't want to corner us only into focusing on short form videos under 60 seconds, or cornering us into how do we create the perfect Instagram Reel or Facebook Watch video, because the reality of the situation is we'll typically like to run with placement asset customization. So the algorithm's going to put that video into those different placements, and then we'll be able to judge what that performance actually looks like. If we have, say, outlier performance on videos under 60 seconds or outlier performance on Instagram Reels and Facebook Watch, then maybe we can dive in a little bit deeper to specifically make videos to try and scale those specific placements. But typically, from what I've seen, it's way more beneficial, it's way more efficient, and you can scale much further if you're building that for the entirety of whatever platform you're on, specifically in this example, Meta.
Excellent. And then the second question that we found has really been sort of growing here is around content experimentation. What innovative approaches are being used to push creative boundaries while maintaining brand identity on Meta platforms? We're going to speak to that question as well today, yeah?
Yeah, this one's really interesting too, because it's a bit of a catch-22 in a lot of circles, depending on the client that you might be building creative for. and how strict they are with their brand identity. That, in a sense, creates its own boundary. So how are we pushing the boundaries within that creative boundary or within that brand identity boundary is an interesting game to play. And again, the way that we set these specific videos up is with this modular approach where we can very vividly and very, very intricately test the individual components in order to push where we can within those components while still maintaining brand identity, again, depending on how strict that client might be, and then building from what data we see on those individual components.
Excellent. And if you are listening, do not forget to stick around to the end because we're going to be unpacking an oftentimes forgotten about component that really connects your message to the user's action and therefore more conversion. So essential information there. And do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Dave, without further ado, why don't we jump into our first component of a performance ad here? What's the first one we're going to be talking through?
The first one we'll be talking through today is creating an anomaly in the news feed or creating an anomaly in the feed. That was perfect. So that could be a good hook. You caught me off guard there, but yeah, stopping the scroll is another way to say this, and one that everybody kind of can relate to. One of the other things that it's pretty known, but it's really important to kind of reiterate is how overcrowded social feeds are with content, and how important that, again, that stop the scroll or that hook becomes in order to grab attention. So using disruptive visuals, bold statements, screaming into the camera as Matt just did, or any kind of motion-based hooks or anything. So we'll go into some other specific examples, but yeah, that first component is to stop the scroll.
It also just really makes you wonder what counts as a hook, you know?
Yeah.
I think you really only answer that question through testing. But, you know, sometimes like a really relevant headline matched with like just the right expression or motion or, you know, whatever sort of subtle thing it is. Sometimes that's a really strong hook. Sometimes it's not, but that's why it takes the testing to sort of figure it out. Yeah.
I think another thing to mention too is I think that your hooks are the most customizable and the quickest to be able to test within videos. So talk about how time consuming overall videos are to create, right? When we're able to modularly create these different components, we can build separate hooks way faster than we can build an entire video.
Yeah.
We can build separate hooks or first initial elements or components even faster than we can the content or the second, third components of the video, only potentially rivaled by the fourth component of videos. But I think it's an understated or underrated sort of piece of videos is how quickly you really can test through hooks in a similar way as you test through static images, for example, because you can constantly try and find new ones. And the other kind of key component to that is they're very adaptable to trends. So being able to use trends is massive in any particular situation, obviously with marketing.
Yeah.
So being able to, again, adapt really quickly to that hook of bringing up something that might be trending in the world or in your specific market is a key component here as well.
Definitely. Dave, why don't we go through some examples of different types of hooks?
Awesome. Yeah. So honestly, the examples here are fairly infinite. Like you can come up with anything that you can think of, like Matt just mentioned, where users are going to stop the scroll. I think the important thing to note here is how tactful you can be with creating these hooks and with testing these hooks and how they end up connecting to the next component of your video. So a couple of the examples I wrote down, again, there's so many, we'd probably talk for 6+ hours on all the different ideas, but some of the ones that I like the most are unconventional visual hooks. You heard Matt just mention one of them when he yelled stop into my screen and scared me a little bit. Disruptive motion and editing is a big one. So like rapid cuts, unexpected jump cuts, things of that nature. Then I also really like bold, controversial, and counterintuitive statements. The key one here is like everything you know about this industry is wrong. Listen to us instead. So then you can kind of draw on the emotion and that connects with the curiosity and a bit of that, in a sense, that cognitive dissonance that people might think of for that specific industry.
Yep.
I think that one also is pretty fun for me because it can spur a lot of engagement in your actual comments. A very underrated piece of overall direct response advertising is how important engagement is on your ads and how that helps you within the auction in terms of CPM and reach. And a couple other ideas that I really like are unusual or attention grabbing characters. So people wearing ridiculous costumes, animated overlays. You see a lot of people cracking eggs, and that might not have anything to do with what they're actually selling or what they're trying to draw your attention to, but sometimes those things can work. We know all about UGC. So what we've been doing lately is still having that native UGC sort of lo-fi style, but bringing up something super unexpected. So an example of that might be going from lo-fi to hi-fi or low production to high production quality. And one of the last ones that I want to bring up is how important and how visually catching high contrast colors and visuals can be.
Yep.
Instead of just your bland sort of black and white, even like gray sort of visuals, bringing in bright colors, even like reversing text or extreme contrast from the typical platforms can help stop the scroll quite a bit as well.
Definitely. And just to sort of keep these sections snackable, we're going to move on a second here, but I feel like the biggest takeaway for me really with these hooks is be thoughtful about your hooks, be more thoughtful maybe than you think you should be about your hooks. It's an art to craft a really good hook. And Dave, like you're saying, the options are really infinite here. So if you don't like the ideas on your board, then keep pushing through them and keep testing, because it's how you're going to find the best stuff that really scales for you.
Yeah, the key component there, which I always talk about whenever we have our chats, Matt, is to make sure that you're actually diagnosing the performance of those specific components. For hooks in particular, that's that 3-second video view divided by overall impressions. So I typically try to shoot for 25% plus. But if you've got a hook that hits X% above your baseline, you know you've got something that's catching people's attention. And then it becomes, hey, how can I test my content in here? How can I draw on emotions, which is what we'll talk about next.
Great. Let's slide right into that. The second section here is how to draw emotions. Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody should know this. People buy based on emotion, not logic. Maybe I might be the only one that buys on logic, but the majority of people buy based on emotion. My favorite example of this is something that I think a lot of people will remember also, which is an example of how Apple originally sold their iPod. Back in the day. Kind of makes me sound old, but I originally had one of those first generation iPods.
Whoa!
And from a benefits and features standpoint, but also the emotion that it ties to the benefits that they were selling. So the feature that they could have sold was 5 gigabytes of storage, right? Like, that's not sexy. That doesn't really kind of catch anybody's attention. But instead, they sold 10,000 songs in your pocket. And as a headline, those two differences obviously are very drastic and right in your face. But what it also does is draw on an emotion, right? So I'm very curious, especially after using a Walkman when I was younger or a CD player when I was younger that could only hold maybe 12 to 15 songs, depending on how long the CD was. Now I get 10,000 songs in my pocket. Like this whole world has opened up to me. So that's the example I like to give in terms of drawing on an emotion. But people need to understand that your ad, it doesn't necessarily need to go super heavy into a given emotion, but it should elicit a strong feeling of whatever that emotion is. Is it urgency? Is it curiosity? Is it joy? Is it jealousy? Is it frustration? All of these emotions that actually sell are the key component of this second module in our video creative.
Right. So, so it's essential to be drawing emotion in a performance ad. I feel like the word that's really standing out to me in this section also is storytelling. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, being able to tell, this is why copywriting is such an informed profession, is just being able to do this in a way that actually is impactful is very, very difficult. This is another reason why we break these blocks up into these modular sections, is because once we can find one, especially with this really difficult section 2 of drawing on an emotion, once we can find that, then we can outscale, and we can componentize, we can attach different hooks, we can attach different CTAs, we can bring in the product in different ways. But when you find that, I call this section the heart of the ad, the heart of the video ad, because it is so difficult to do correctly and impactfully.
Great. Any other sort of examples from this section that you felt like were relevant to talk through?
Yeah, I think in order to most impactfully highlight relatable pain points that will sell your product, the ones I like the most are, like you just mentioned, storytelling, but specifically empathy-driven storytelling.
Yep.
The one that I remember, we ran a video ad quite a few years ago, but it ended up being so great that it ended up just living on, and it was about wasted time and how this particular service ended up saving people's times. It's like, I used to waste hours every week doing X, Y, and Z until I found this. I think another key emotion to kind of elicit is showing and not telling. So we talked a little bit about like frustration or joy. You can show those emotions with slow motion, like facial expressions or actual problem and answer scenarios. Data and proof is an interesting one because it does tie to logic, but you can also bring an emotion to that too. So an example I had written down for this one is like 9 out of 10 people waste 40% of their time or 40% of their money in the grocery store. Are you one of them? And you're like, okay, am I one of them? Like, what are they talking about wasting their money in the grocery store? Are they talking about like Instacart? Are they talking about some kind of new delivery for groceries or something like this?
Right. And the emotion that you're drawing there is fear, because I'm so afraid that I've missed something and I'm one of these idiots that is spending too much on my eggs or something.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody wants to look like a doofus. But the other one that is so strong is greed. And greed works both ways. Like
Yep.
if I'm wasting my money on this, I don't have enough money to be able to do the things that I want to do in life, right? So kind of being able to tie it both ways it's an easy way to look at it, but at the same time, I think that subjective nature allows you to go after wider and wider swaths of users, or wider and wider swaths of targets. Everybody knows urgency and FOMO also. That's a pretty massive one. My favorite one, but I also think this is one of the hardest ones to do correctly or tactfully enough for it to reach your entire market in the same way, which is humor. There's a lot of great humor. We've got the Super Bowl coming up. You can count, I think, probably of the majority of commercials that you see during the Super Bowl or during halftime will use humor in some way. It's a very memorable emotion, especially if it's done correctly, or most notably if it is done correctly. And then the one that we see every day, this is a little overused in my opinion, but it's overused because it works, is relatability or social proof.
Relatability or social proof. I love it. Dave, do you want to take us into solving that pain point? Our next section here.
Yeah, our next component is solving pain points. So this is also an easy one to kind of understand, but again, doing this correctly is the most difficult thing, right? Like being able to actually test this in a way that actually drives performance is the hard part. So solving a pain point, this is also where you can provide your product or your service as the solution to whatever problem that you may have presented or whatever emotion you may have been trying to elicit in that previous component. These go hand in hand. A lot of people bucket these two sections together and they just call them their content. So you have your hook, you have your content, and then you have your CTA, your connection to your landing page. I like to break these out into this framework because it really focuses us in on drawing that emotion.
Yep.
And then solving that, or like bringing up that pain point and then solving that pain point in those clear manners. So another way to say this is once you've made your audience feel the problem, then you quickly position your product or service as the most efficient or the best or the most effortless solution by providing or showing visual proof, clear transformations before and afters, adding credibility to help build trust. A couple of the examples I like in this specific component are, again, those before and afters. So like fast, clear transformations from using the product that solves that particular problem.
Yep.
Demonstrating visual proof, though this could be before and after, but it also could deal with using physical products, testing physical products on screen, and not just explaining what they do, but actually showing them in action.
Right.
This one's a little difficult, but I like using unexpected analogies. An example of this might be we use our ad strategy like a GPS, so taking you straight to the destination you're trying to get to. So like just bringing in a random kind of pattern interrupt in order to kind of keep people like, why did they just bring GPS up if they're talking about their ad agency? Or why did they bring candy up if they're talking about like paint or something like this? A couple key sort of, I guess, more popular ones that I think deserve to be talked about too are authority and trust. So you can look at any pharma ad or any health D2C ad, and you'll see featured experts, you'll see celebrities, you'll see
founders,
any kind of like doctors that might be trying to add credibility and trust. You see this a lot with the colors actually used on financial companies and wealth investment, sort of using that, like usually it's blue and gold to try and instill that trust. So talking about colors is an interesting way to bring up these solutions as well. Another clear one, I actually saw a recent amazing example of this one, but destroying common objections is another example. I saw an amazing video. I think it was shared in our Slack. I mean, maybe not even yesterday or 2 days ago, but it was all about using an ad based entirely on the comment section of this particular brand's product and what their actual comment section said. So that's a really interesting one, being able to just take real people's examples and questions and objections and instantaneously answer them. Because if one person actually asks a legitimate question, you can be sure that there's probably 100 plus times more people or 1,000 plus times more people, depending on your target, that are asking the same question but are just not typing it in. And that last one is results. I know this is I know we're going through these relatively quickly, but results is a super common one that you see. It works really well, but if you have a time frame and a result of when you're going to potentially receive that benefit from the product, so in 6 weeks my wrinkles were gone, or in 7 days I saw 56% more ROI. Fast-paced results-focused copy is a really great tool inside of that pain point solution component.
Yeah, this is also the section where you could be doing sort of like an app walkthrough, or if it's a service or a subscription or something like that you're selling, you could be, doing a green screen video showing the actual like ins and outs of what the person's going to be signing up for. So sort of revealing the solve there. Dave, before we go into this last section, I'm just going to set this up a little bit. It might land on people's ears in sort of a funny way, but this next component really is the way that you tie your messaging to action. I think that's sort of the most boiled down reason of why this is such an essential component to really any performance ad, and also something that we see so commonly forgot about. I mean, it's really unbelievable how often this sort of best practice is missing from somebody's, quote unquote performance ad. So take us in, Dave.
Yeah, and without further ado, it's your CTA. It's connecting and driving action to your landing page.
Call to action, yeah.
Yeah, your call to action. I think another way to say this that should potentially hit it home even harder is that even the best ads can be useless without a clear next step.
Yep.
That's the bottom line. Like your CTA needs to be seamless. It needs to be compelling. It needs to be urgent. Like it needs to reinforce action with other examples like social proof or visual cues or again, urgency, ensuring more users or more viewers, in this case for videos, take that desired action, whether it's clicking the CTA to get to your landing page, whether it's signing up for a particular product or becoming a lead or purchasing whatever that service might be. Another key thing to note here too, just me saying that the best ads can be useless without a clear next step or a clear CTA or a clear call to action doesn't mean that people won't be clicking on your ad before they get to this very last section. A lot of times your ad can drive action based on even just a solid hook without even knowing what the product is yet. People might click on it.
Right.
When you just introduce your product, they might click right away then. Those are your highest intent audiences, especially if you're utilizing different CTAs throughout your video. But in trying to connect everything that you've just shown a user, this last component of driving action to your landing page is, like you just mentioned, one of the most underrated pieces. And sometimes people just slap the end frame on there with a button and not give it much thought. But this is another way for us to scale out the life of really winning other components of videos by including new end frames and new CTAs. It also allows us to extend the life of really great assets by and like through evergreen, through promo periods, by being able to kind of customize it based on the particular season that we might be in. But it's such a key area, which is why it's included in these 4 components for us.
Absolutely. So keep it simple, keep it direct, keep it prominent. This really sort of plays into that psychology of the most important parts of, any piece, any message, any conversation. It's the beginning, it's the hook, and it's the end. How are you bringing them in, and how are you leaving them at the end? So be just as thoughtful about this CTA as you are about your hook. Just to kind of take us back through this, I think we broke down a real sort of ironclad anatomy of a performance ad today, and just addressing this sort of like modular creation. If you're not testing your content in this modular fashion already, you got to get on this. You're going to fall behind without doing this. And if you are already testing in this modular fashion, I think what we're really saying is double down, dig into those weeds, find new modules to test within your modules. Yeah.
The module inception is what we'll call it.
Excellent. Dave, anything else you want to leave us with on this topic?
I think we covered it all, Matt. I think we got everybody involved in understanding more about the components of videos that are going to drive performance for them, understanding each of those given components, why they're actually important, and then some examples of how to increase those given components testing within your current ad framework that you have.
Excellent. Dave, thank you so much for being with us today. And if you are listening and you are interested in exploding your own digital growth, you can get in touch with Jump 450 in the link below in the description. That is www.jump450.com. And do not forget to subscribe for more weekly episodes. That's my CTA. I'll see you next time.